Well, God, people love me, don't they?
Regis Philbin and Kelly Ripa.
Also, I did a pilot for a game show.
Oh, you'd be a great one, you.
You win!
Ladies and gentlemen, from Tacoma, Washington, Robert Q. Seidelman!
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody. You know, ever since 1956, to tell the truth, has had a plethora of hosts. Some that have lasted many years, or some that have just lasted just a few months. Even so, we have been inundated with requests to do another Game Show Garbage Food Chain, and such we are going to do one for the To Tell the Truth hosts. We will do that as soon as we meet the other panelists here on the Game Show Garbage Food Chain.
I'm not going to do the Alan Calder voice for myself. I can't throw myself that much at this hour of the day. No, it's me, Jim Williams. Hey, great to be doing this again, Rob. Yes.
You see, I got this nice little desk here, and you got the entire 4-seat panel over there.
I'm laying down. I'm just kicking back, putting the legs up. Yeah.
Yes, we'll have younger versions of Peggy Cass and Katie Carlisle for you later. But on that note, by the way, man, 9 hosts to go through.
It's time to tell the truth about the hosts of To Tell the Truth, you might say.
Yes, before we go on, we do have some rules that we got to lay down.
Yes.
One, these do not include all 30,000 sub-hosts that have hosted when Bud Collier was either sick or on vacation.
So Bert Convey, you're not going to see him on here. You're not going to see Mark Goodson as a sub-host on here being mentioned.
From the Alex Trebek era, Tom Poston, Merv Griffin. We will also not count the Richard Klein 1990 pilot as well.
I have a feeling Mr. Klein wouldn't want us to count it as well, so.
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
Can you say phoned it in? I knew you could.
I haven't even seen it.
I've seen enough of it to say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he completely phoned it in.
He could have been our patron saint if he actually got the gig.
Yeah, but Patrick Wayne makes a better one, and, well, Pat Bullard's a close second. By the way, you like the new Open, kids? I made it. Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And by the way, you should actually see the full commercial.
Oh, the full tic-tac. Yeah, tic-tac.
That last piece of footage for the intro. Oh my God.
Just go to YouTube, search Tic-Tac-Toe 90 promo number 1, and you will want that 30 seconds of your life back, I promise you. Let's get back to this show here.
Let's start at the very beginning, 1956. Show debuted in 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
CBS Daytime and CBS Nighttime, all helmed by the same guy who was doing tons of other shows already, that of course being Bud Collier.
Yeah, Superman. The show was a primetime and daytime little ditty for quite some time, recorded out of CBS television studios in New York, Studio 52 and later Studio 50. And 12 years of primetime and daytime in various incarnations, you can't knock it.
No, you can't. Nighttime, 1956 to 1966 or 67, around the same time What's My Line went off the air. And also daytime 1956 to 1969.
The thing with when we're going through all the hosts here, you're going to notice we're not just comparing hosting styles, but really hosting eras as well, because Collier was, a meat and potatoes kind of guy, just the facts, go right on down the line, and yeah, I mean, he could play to the panelists' strengths and weaknesses as much as any host. Any good host of this format could, but it was pretty much no frills, and hence no frills is often the most successful, hence this was the most successful version of the show.
Yes, but you also have to remember back in the 50s and the 60s, the panel show was king.
Absolutely. I've Got a Secret, What's My Line, to a far lesser extent the name's the same.
We're looking at you, Bob and Ray.
Yes, they'll get their day. They'll get their day.
But another thing with Bud Collier, the reason he was so meat and potatoes on To Tell the Truth, because he was allowed to be a little more freer on another show that was airing during this time period, Beat the Clock.
And I would go so far to say as I prefer Bud Collier on Beat the Clock more than I do him on To Tell the Truth. Not that he didn't do a good job on To Tell the Truth. He did a fine job. It's just, it's comparing apples to oranges. Which is your favorite kind of fruit?
No comment.
I wasn't going for a double entendre there. I was just being factual for once.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're not Carl or Joe Van Ginkel on the BS Big Show.
Yeah, don't say it. Yeah. It heard on CLW83.com. You can take a listen to it here. Ding!
There you go.
There we go. See, we get plugs in here. It's a beautiful thing. Alrighty. So obviously we have to keep him at the top of the list. I mean, we're not gonna...
For now.
Yeah, for now. But that can easily change.
And then let's move eras from the state affairs of the 50s and early 60s to the much more lively era of the late 60s to the early 70s. The revival in syndication that lasted quite a while with its first host, Gary Moore.
Yes, I mean, considering Bud Collier's health was deteriorating at the time just before the new version of Truth went on the air in syndication in the fall of '69, if you're going to go for somebody who can host a panel show, why not go to a guy who hosted one for something like 13 years with I've Got a Secret in Gary Moore? Great choice. He still had it. He still had that wonderment about him, and he was still sharp as ever, and he was a fine host, to tell the truth. He is a true professional, and he wasn't afraid to lighten the proceedings a bit, and the format as a whole was a little bit less, I don't want to say stodgy, but I'm going to say stodgy anyway. But then again, that's how panel shows were in the olden days, if you were formal affairs, people wearing suits and bow ties and the whole tuxedos and elegance and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This was more free-flowing, and you had some great stories, and you had the great unit of a panel in place. The psychedelic set I can do without, but the hosting was on par, if not better than Collier's, I might say.
I would tend to agree because when I was a young kid and I went to my aunt and uncle's house, well, both of them, to watch To Tell the Truth, to watch Game Show Network because we didn't have it at our house, I would watch To Tell the Truth with the psychedelic set. I also watched it with the pink and blue set before it transformed into the set that the 70s version is more well known for.
With the block lettering and the full...
Yep.
Truthers, as I call them, yes.
Gary Moore's hosting was really good, and also another note, it felt a little more calmer and more, you're right, it felt a little more calmer, more relaxed, but that's because you take a look, they were allowed to be a little more freer with, the liars and the truths, and they also added stuff.
Yeah, like, they would demo some things, a la I've Got a Secret, a la the second incarnation of What's My Line, so there was some milling about, if you were, more milling about on this version. And that was up to Gary Moore's, and that was up to his forte as a comedian and as a broadcaster.
And also, it's what he did it's what happened on the old I've Got a Secret.
Exactly. They were definitely, and quite frankly, all of Goodson Todman's panel shows at that time, so let's throw What's My Line in there as well, adopted a little bit from I've Got a Secret. He also benefited from a great panel. I mean, Bill Cullen, Kitty Carlisle, of course, Peggy Cass, and the rotating fourth panelist, as I like to call it, for many years. They all gelled perfectly, and it's that panel chemistry which is both the genesis of greatness and in some respects the cause for the show to end, as we'll talk about in a moment or two. But let's stay with Gary Moore here. Do you put him over top of Superman here?
I kind of have to. He is the kryptonite.
Well, that's the idea, as Bud would say. I'm with you. Let's put Gary Moore over Bud Collier. No knock on Bud Collier. He was a great host, the longest tenured host. But Gary Moore, you could relate to him a little bit more on Truth, I think.
Now we need to talk about what's happening during this period. As we all know, what happened, TV was, you saw a lot of smoking in the 50s and 60s on TV and even in the early 70s. As we know now, but didn't really know back then, how harmful it was to your health. And as we've seen on old episodes of I've Got a Secret, Gary Moore really liked to smoke.
Winston was a primary sponsor of I've Got a Secret back in the day. And as Moore would say on what would be his final show late in the run, I should say, he was diagnosed with a no-no, that no-no being throat cancer. And it would cause him to rethink everything he was doing and pretty much go into full-fledged retirement. In the months preceding the official retirement announcement, the producers decided to, let's see, go with some interim hosts. Among them, the next person we're going to talk about.
The Dean himself, Bill Cullen.
Now, how long did Bill actually guest host Truth for?
He hosted it sporadically. Going back to 71, 72, he actually hosted a few weeks. Whenever Gary was on vacation, Bill would be your go-to sub-host.
Understandably, because he is the dean of game shows, and even was back then. Everybody knew how great he was to that day and what have you. But I think, and this was the quandary that Mark Goodson and the production staff at Goodson Todman had, do you want to take arguably your best panelist and move him to host long-term with the situation with Gary Moore? And
the thing is, I would say second best panelist, Kitty Carlisle.
Well, okay, well, yeah, second to Kitty Carlisle. You're absolutely right. And that was the quandary. I mean, Bill Cullen, I don't know one game that he could not host. He could host anything. Yeah, okay, the Joker's Wild, maybe he was a little out of place with, but he was still more than competent, that's for sure. I only saw there's one or two episodes of Bill Cullen hosting Truth on YouTube, and he did the fine job that he always does. It's a conundrum to me because you can't put him first or second, I don't think. Can you?
You could, but it's a bit of a stretch.
Only because he didn't have the chair on a regular basis. It was semi-regular. He even said on the show he was pinch hitting the whole time for Gary Moore, various incarnations and what have you. This one might require, and I know in the last chain we did, you wouldn't let me put an asterisk in, but I think you might have to here because Cullen is such a great host, but this wasn't his baby, for lack of better terms.
No, because he didn't host it full time, so we will put the asterisk up for Cullen at 3.
He could easily be a 1 or a 2, obviously, but he didn't helm the show long enough. Not to knock how great a host he was, it's just, it is what it is. And this brings us to 1977 and the final season, essentially, of To Tell the Truth, in its first syndication run. With Gary Moore coming back and on one show, complete in sneakers. I thought that was hilarious myself. Mm-hmm. Hey, he wasn't getting paid to do it, so what the heck, right?
No, he was paid to do it.
I thought he said, well, he joked that he wasn't getting paid. Maybe that was just a joke, and I took it.
That was a joke.
Well, you never know. Knowing that Gary Moore was going to step down as MC and compier of the show, he made the announcement that it came down to Bill Cullen and Joe Garagiola, and they flipped somebody, and it came up heads, and Joe Garagiola won. Garagiola was picked as the host to tell the truth onward and upward, seemingly. Here's the thing. Garagiola, I mean, he had been on the panel semi-frequently, I guess we can say,
at
that point. As a host, and we may have a disagreement here, he didn't really fit my liking to a host on any show he did. I never saw him on sale, so I can't vouch for that. He said, she said, Strike it, Rich, I'll say it,
Yay.
Well, of course you're going to say yay, because you're all about no bandit, no bandit, no bandit. I know that.
Well, I also like the British version, too, and I thought Joe Garagiola had a different feel as a host. He wasn't a real moderator type of a host, and plus he didn't come from a TV background. He came from baseball.
Yes and no. I mean, he was a sportscaster at the time. He was NBC's lead voice for the World Series by the time he took over Truth. Had been an analyst for a couple of years, did the baseball world of Joe Garagiola. And I'll agree with you, he came off as the everyman. I think that's the best way to sum up Joe Garagiola. He was the everyman. He was the guy next door at the pub you would talk to about the game with. And, I mean, he looked at times a little uncomfortable to me as host, but he got through it. Sadly, the show would last only one season at the helm with Garagiola, but I don't think that was his fault. I think even if they put Bill Cullen in for a season, the show would have been done anyway because it was the only thing left in terms of panel games at that time outside of the Liars Club, if you want to go there.
Yeah, but that ended that year too.
Yeah, and panel games were kind of passé by that point, for better or for worse. I would say for worse. Okay, Garagiola, do we put him at the bottom? I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah, we got to put him at the bottom. We like more Collier and Cullen a bit better than Garagiola.
I would agree with that. And now we're going to see, I think, a new basement dweller. Because after a couple of years off, To Tell the Truth was revived once again in syndication, fall of 1980, and the host of the program from, I believe it was recorded in the same studio at NBC. Yep. I remember watching the early shows of the Late Night with David Letterman, where he would go across the hall and you'd see, or backstage, and you'd see, this is the area for To Tell the Truth contestants to, he had fun with that. Robin Ward, a Canadian nobody. I mean, a Canadian TV personality who essentially came off as a nobody to you, me, and everybody in the States. What can you say?
Didn't fit at all.
It was the equivalent of square peg, round hole syndrome. He was very ill at ease as host. He had no command, and he seemed like he was trying to rush. Now, I'll also say this. A couple other things hurt his version of the show, namely the fact there was never truly a consistent panel. That's what hurt, I think, as much as Robin Ward's hosting, or lack thereof. But Ward as a host, he was just there going through the motions at best. So I think we put him right in the bargain basement.
We kind of have to, but another thing also plagued that version, to tell the truth. They added too much.
In a few ways, yes.
There wasn't that camaraderie when you would have the host come out first, have a little spiel, and then talk to the panel, and shake their hands and everything.
Sit down, let's play the game. That's what it was. Let's quickly get to the game, and the game is the thing, and I understand that, but it made it a cold kind of feeling, not to mention the uber-exuberant light setup, which had never been seen on the show in the past, and the disco-phonic theme when disco was long dead. Well, game shows are kind of behind the times with the trends, what can I say? Of course, this version also added one-on-one, which, I could take or leave.
It was horrible.
Yeah. I mean,
this one was horrible.
Okay. So Robin Ward to the bottom. I mean, and hey, you know what? He's doing more than I am in broadcasting. I think he, what is he? Is he a weather guy or something up there?
Well, anybody could be doing more in broadcasting right now than you are, Jim.
Why you gotta rub it in my face, man?
I'm not trying to rub it in, dude, because I'm in the same boat as well.
Nice talking.
Well,
Solomon. Moving on. I'm only kidding.
And thus, the search for the new Dumb Answer of the Week correspondent begins next Friday. No, I'm kidding.
I know you kid. You joke with
I do, kid. So let's go to NBC.
Yes, the Peacock, emphasis on the last part of that syllable, took a chance in September of 1990 to bring the grand old game back, and you know what? For all the problems this version had, it was pretty well done. For all the jinxing problems. Again, we're not going to mention Richard Klein. Those of you on the East Coast back in 1990, you saw him day one, sorry. But let's talk about the actual first host of To Tell the Truth on NBC in 1990, straight from down under, I don't remember the rest of the song, Gordon Elliot.
Where women grow and men plunder.
Thank you very much. Can't you hear the thunder? Well, the thunder was kind of a contract problem.
Yeah, Gordon Elliot, let's talk about Gordon Elliott's hosting first, then we'll talk about the contract. He also would mingle with the contestants a little bit. And here's what I liked about this version of To Tell the Truth. Mm-hmm. Even though you would never really get demonstrations after the game, when you got to the end of the show, mm-hmm. we would have some demonstrations. One of my favorite ones, and I think Randy West could attest to this one as well.
Yes.
Dance party!
Because Randy was in the background for that episode, and he was one of the imposters. That's right. Yes. Yes.
He got 3 votes and stumped the panel. I think that episode's up on YouTube.
Yeah, it was from the first week of shows. Gee, I wonder whatever happened to that guy, that Randy guy. I wonder if he's making anything of himself in the world. Anyway.
Who knows? Actually, second week.
First or second week. Yeah, it was early in the show. Well, early in the run. But Gordon Elliott, yeah, he seemed to have an appreciation for the show. He actually had a little bit of a rapport with Kitty Carlisle, which I thought was pretty neat for a newcomer to the format. And Kitty pretty much gave him the eternal blessing of hosting the show early in the run, which was kind of nice, too. Mm-hmm. But all good things had to be pumped on the brakes because of a little contract dispute with a former broadcaster he was working with.
Yes, actually this was from Fox.
Arrgh.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's my Keith Olbermann doing Rupert Murdoch impression. Thank you.
Basically what happened was in the summer of 1990, Gordon Elliott and Rupert Murdoch for his Fox stations were going to do a morning talk show. That never saw the light of day until like a year or two later, but Rupert had Gordon sign some sort of no-compete.
And it only took how many weeks into the run before that dispute made its way to
2 months.
Yeah. So for some people, they had already seen in just over 2 months 2 different hosts of To Tell the Truth, going on 3 at that point, and we'll talk about the third in a second. But Gordon did a good job with the show with the short time he was there. He made the show his own, and that's tough to do when you're a newcomer in a new country. It was a bold move to go with Gordon Elliot, I think, but he established himself in Australia. He wanted to make it here in the States, and if you watch ABC to this day, you know he's making it big with the Chew these days as the executive producer behind that.
And he also executive produced tons of stuff on the Food Network in its early days.
Oh, absolutely. He's done wonderful things. Don't cry over spilled milk for Gordon. He's going to be all right. But on the depth chart here, on the food chain, well,
where to put him?
You got to put him above Garagiola. That's a given, I think. Or do you?
Yeah, you put him above Joe Garagiola, but do you put him? I think you put him above Cullen.
This is one of those quandaries because Elliot and Cullen probably hosted close to the same number of To Tell the Truth episodes, roundabout. You can make a case Cullen probably hosted a few more, but it's the same general number. It's a tough one. I can go either way. I'll let you make the final decision. Thanks, Jim. New Dumb Answer of the Week correspondent next Friday. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm actually going to pull the trigger.
All right, you're going to put Cullen down to 4, and you're going to move Gordon to 3.
I'm going to put Gordon Elliot at 3.
Okay, that's fine. Cheerio, I say. Now, the replacement for Gordon Elliot was a person who had been a frequent panelist on the 1990 version of To Tell the Truth, and at the time an ABC sports broadcaster, and also one of the great wide receivers in Pittsburgh Steeler history, and a guy who on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wore a tutu, Lynn Swann.
Oh, Lynn Swann.
Once again, we come to the peg shape does not match peg hole quandary. He just didn't gel. He seemed out of place. He seemed like he was thrust into the role, which, yeah, he was. So he didn't get a fair chance to some degree, but then again, he did get, 14 weeks as the host? Something like that.
Yeah, according to certain places, it was 14 weeks with the show, and took over as host in the interim. He didn't last too long because he had scheduling conflicts with job as an ABC sports commentator.
Well, I mean, the ABC sports gig was his paying job at the time, so he's going to pick that over hosting a game show every day of the week, twice on Sunday, a gig that he would have for something like a decade or so afterwards, working as a sideline guy for college football with Brent Musburger and the gang. But back to him hosting To Tell the Truth.
He stunk.
He was ill at ease. I'm not gonna throw him under the bus like you are per se.
Yeah, I'm throwing him under the bus.
Okay, we'll throw him under the bus. But by the same token, he already had a couple strikes against him. The fact that there was the behind the scenes were a little tumultuous because of the changing of host. The fact that the show wasn't gaining traction with the audience at the time, as judged by almost everything in 1990 that debuted. How far down on the pecking order do we put him?
I will say this. He had no chemistry with the panel.
You know, he tried, but his ad-libs lacked sincerity.
Anything.
Yeah. So, okay.
You can make a really strong case putting him on the bottom.
I don't know that I'd do that. I'm debating that. I think you definitely put him below Garagiola, but do you put him below Ward? I can go either way once again. I can go either way.
I'm going to say no.
So you're going to
put him below Garagiola, but Ward's still the bottom feeder.
Okay. Now, as the new year turned over, 1991 came in. Lynn Swann, as we mentioned, decided to stick with ABC Sports, which I think, no disrespect, smart move. And, well, a little history was made as the man who hosted another Goodson show in classic concentration, oh yeah, and something in syndication the kids called Jeopardy, you may have heard of that, was tapped to host Truth, Alex Trebek. He brought some class to the affair, I have to say.
He did bring some class. However, I need to say this.
Okay.
I did not think he was a great fit to the show either.
Really? I would disagree a little bit. I thought he was not as good as Elliot, but he was easily superior to Swann, and I thought he did a fine job given the ammunition he had to work with.
And it wasn't much because, guess he was hosting 2 other shows concurrently during this time. Classic Concentration and Jeopardy!
Call now and play Phone Jeopardy!
You could insert stuff there as well.
I'm sure I could.
She drank the poison that Captain Hook intended for Peter Pan.
Tinkerbell!
But okay, well, I mean, he made the proceedings go a lot smoother than Swann did, so you got to give him credit there. He was a good MC. I don't know that you put him. You can't put him below Garagiola in my estimation. You can't.
If we could actually put two in a slot, I would put him right alongside Garagiola.
But see, since this isn't food chain with a side on.
Another thing with Trebek is he also did have some rapport with the panel, but not a lot, merely because he was also suffering burnout factor as well. My theory is he was just a fill-in, just to finish out the contract of 1 year.
That nice bullseye reference also can be found in the open of this video. I'm sorry. You've completed another contract, Patrick Wayne. Okay. Anyway. No. All right. So where do we put him?
Above Garagiola's fine, but no higher.
Okay. Well, no, I'm not going any higher than that. Okay. And then mercifully, to tell the truth, went off the air after, 9 months, 7, 8 months, something like that. And it would be another decade, seemingly a theme here. 1980? Meh. 1990? Meh. 2000. Well, we get to tell the truth back one last time with John OHurley at the helm.
And we know how much both of us love John OHurley as a helmsman.
Yeah, the real Jay Peterman is good peeps, and this was his first foray into game show hosting. So, yeah, he wasn't completely as refined as he would be on Feud years later, but he did a capable job given what he had to work with. Yeah, I'm looking at Paula Poundstone.
Oh, when you have your regulars Meshack Taylor and Paula Poundstone.
Meshack couldn't get any more residuals off of designing women, I guess, so that's why he was put in. No, actually, no, he was on Dave's World at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, still, he couldn't get residuals out of that either. I'm sorry. When I think of Meshack Taylor, I'm like, oh, he's the dude on designing women. That's all I got. OHurley did a fine job hosting. He was what when we talked about him on Feud, pretty much apply the same thing to tell the truth. A little green early on, obviously, because he'd never done a show like this before, or any game show, but he was fine. He did a fine job. It's the format and the change to the, I don't want to say the change of the format, but the change to the style between seasons 1 and seasons 2 that really kind of, me more than anything else.
Yeah, but you have to also take into consideration the production company was also running 3 shows during this time.
Yes. Louis' Feud, the greatest version of Family Feud, by the way, as we mentioned in the previous video. Go back and watch it. Click here. Ding. Okay.
Yeah.
No, and of course, Card Guppies. I mean, card sharks. God, people love me, don't they?
Yes, we're referencing everything in the new intro,
That's
even
right.
Regis Philbin and Kelly Ripa.
Yes, well, yeah, Kelly Ripa just taken over. No, she hadn't. Anyway, so OHurley. Now this is gonna be a little tough because OHurley was a good host. It's just how good in the limited time that he hosted the whatever it was 195 episodes because it got canceled halfway through the second full season. What would have been the second full season?
Actually, just 65. I think the original version had 160.
Okay, well, okay, we'll say 200 roughly.
Yeah.
So, okay, Gary Moore's staying on top. Collier staying 2.
Gordon stays.
Gordon stays at 3. Keep Cullen with the asterisk there. I think right after Cullen, you got to put OHurley.
I would agree because he did have quite a bit of a repertoire of the panel, including stuff with Paula and Meshack, and he would also have repertoire with the contestants, Kim Coles, also Kitty Carlisle, who appeared on one episode.
Just so she could prove that she could do her thing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, ladies and gentlemen. First member of the 6-decade club, as Steve Beverly would often say.
Also, to be known also that when Meshack left, the regulars, they had 3 of them. It was Meshack Taylor, Kim Coles, and Brooke Burns.
Which, when you say Brooke Burns, I think shucky ducky quack quack, but then she opens her mouth. Okay, now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's put John OHurley above Bill Cullen.
You're going to put him above Cullen?
Put him above Cullen.
All right, put him above the Dean. I can hear the game show forum types already saying, "You can't do that."
bite me, I say.
Oh, there you go. It is what it is. So run down the chain one more time for the folks at home.
At the top of the list, we have Gary Moore, who hosted the show from 1969 to 1977. And number 2, we have the original host, Bud Collier. And then at the 3 spot, a very respectable 3 spot, Gordon Elliot as the host. Number 4, John OHurley, who's been on the 4 spot on both lists so far. 5 spot because the Astor's Bill Cullen, mainly the more permanent sub-host. And then we have number 6, we have Alex Trebek. Number 7 is Mr. Strike It Rich himself, Joe Garagiola. And then a chasm of difference between the other 2, Lynn Swann at 8, and the worst host of To Tell the Truth, Robin Ward at number 9.
Yes, Robin Ward, better known for dancing like an idiot on an episode of Guess What, as uploaded on YouTube.
Oddly enough, we don't know if many of those episodes still exist.
Because it was in Canada, and Canada doesn't maintain its history outside of Hockey Night in Canada, and even that's a stretch sometimes. I just offended Canadians. This is good. Let's keep going. All right. Well, no, we're done. That's it.
That's it. It should be noted that there were plans to... I do believe there were plans to revive To Tell the Truth. I think GSN probably shot a pilot or probably pitched it a bit, but never saw the light of day.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one of those venerable shows that you have to have the proper ingredients, and it's got to be, for lack of better terms, the perfect storm scenario. The first 2 versions of the show were perfect storm scenarios. Not much was on TV in the 50s. 3, technically 4 networks, I should say.
Dumont.
Well, yeah, Dumont, Goulet. No, but... yeah, and again, the syndication market being a big thing in the 60s and 70s starting up. Perfect storm situations, great panels, great hosts. From there, it's, you
just got too glutted.
It got too flooded. 1990, I'll tell you what we should do a food chain on, really. Shows that debuted and canceled, which is just about all of them, from 1990. Because there were decent shows that year.
That's a long list.
It's a long list, but if we can narrow it down to a few of them, like for example, you might want like The Challengers. That was a show that should have lasted longer than it did.
To a lesser extent, Trump Card.
Yeah. To a lesser extent, it wasn't that bad. Bob's Not Your Uncle, though. That's all I'm saying. I've been on a kick, by the way, and that we're going non sequitur here, folks. I've been watching a lot of British game shows on YouTube, and I hate to say it, it's thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Bullseye and Family Fortunes with big money.
Thank you, Max Bygraves.
Exactly.
I would do a British food chain for the Family Fortunes hosts, but I will be subbing out Jim for multimedia mouth person Chris Nelson to do that one.
I take no offense. He's British.
And he can kick your ass.
Like I said, he's British.
Exactly. Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. I don't know the man. He probably could kick my key store. So
right.
There we go. That's it.
Speaking of Keister, they're bringing back Almost Live.
What?
Yep.
Okay. Those of you who are still watching this, I'm sorry he even mentioned this. Wait a minute. Are they bringing back a new version of it, or are they still rerunning the same season?
No, they're going to bring back a new version with most of the original cast.
No Ross Schaefer, though, of course.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean original cast. I meant
the
more well-known cast.
Well, because that and plus Ross Schaefer's kind of a big thing in the motivational speaking and emceeing kind of thing, corporate speak stuff.
Probably get Schaefer to do a couple bits. But Keister signed on, Cashman signed on, Tracy Conway signed on.
If they can get a cameo from Bill Nye.
They'll probably get Bill Nye for a couple of episodes. I don't think he would look good in the old Speedwalker outfit.
And there's... Okay, they have to do one thing if they're doing Almost Live. And you know where I'm going with this, Rob. They've got to bring back the coolest Caucasians ever.
The high-fiving white guy.
All right.
Right. It's hip to B squared.
Ah, yes. We have no life. That's why we did game show garbage, kids. Okay. Are we?
Hey, I'm the guy. Actually, no. Blame Blade Braxton for all of this.
Yeah. Wait a minute. He wasn't the one who bought the Katie Vick outfit, was he? Or that was RD, wasn't it?
Oh, that was both of them.
Oh dear Lord. And anytime we can mention Katie Vick, I think that's time to call it a day.
Oh, I got a story to talk about the Katie Vick outfit.
On the video here, or you want to save that for after?
Yeah, I'm gonna bury Blade here.
Oh, here we go. Well, welcome to Game Show Garbage After Hours. Go ahead.
Tuesday night, actually no, Monday night after Raw, I decided to call Blade and talk some wrestling about. He was in Detroit with his then girlfriend. We get to talking, and they spill the beans that they actually redid the entire Katie Vick segment.
Oh my, oh jeez.
Complete with spaghetti and everything.
Dear Lord. I'm gonna be off.
I ran and grabbed the nearest bottle of Mike's Hard Lemonade and guzzled that damn thing as quick as I could.
The password is brain bleach.
Ding!
Alright, do you want to play, pass, or double, for God's sakes? Oh my.
Double!
Oh, wait a minute, you're at double points! Woo!
Yeah, it turned out when I heard about that, I was gonna message R.D. Reynolds because I have a feeling he might bring that up on the next show. I didn't, and that caused R.D. to leave the next episode of Wrestle Crap Radio.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, no longer exists, correct?
I just had their finale last week.
Oh, there you go. Alrighty. Well, you came in here, ladies and gentlemen, for a food chain on To Tell the Truth, and then you got necrophilia. No,
No. Blade's girlfriend was alive.
we think. So...
Not in a Detroit Lions outfit as well of nylon.
Well, Detroit Lions, that's punishable by... Never mind. Okay, so I have a fan of the Canadians, Detroit... Okay.
Clark will kick your ass.
I think we're done here.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done. So on behalf of Robert Q. Seidelman, who is whatever he is, I'm Jim Williams. What?
I'm actually fighting Billy Kwan right now.
Thanks for watching, and enjoy the new clothes, Smirk.